Welcome, everybody. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are tuning in from. This is
Turning.
Spirit Matters. I'm Dal Gurunga, along with my co-host Achita Gopi. Our good friend Kishore Chandra is not with us this week. He is frolicking in the Ionian Sea off the coasts of Sicily and Italy with his family. We just got back from a Bhakti Center trip that we took there. Yoga and Kirtan retreat with a great, wonderful group of people. He stayed on extra. Um, and I'm here. I'm here with Achuta. How are you, Achuta?
I'm good. I remember when I used to frolic.
In the Ionian Sea
No, just in general.
in
Unfortunately,
general,
I never got to.
in the Hudson River and in Prospect Park, the Bronx Zoo, anywhere specific?
I did go kind of frolic in Brooklyn. You know, at the Pier 4 where they have like the beach that's like 2 feet wide by 4 feet.
Yeah, it's a limited frolicking.
Yeah,
Limited
city frolic.
frolicking. City frolicking. There's a word for that which Kishore uses often. It's called flaneur. You know what flaneur means? Flaneur means it's like this just kind of wandering around a city or a place somewhat aimlessly, but soaking up the experience of just being somewhere exotic. Flaneur.
Manure.
Yeah, I'm
I
just gonna
feel like I'm gonna now have to use that word. Also, that sounds exactly like what Srila Prabhupada told people they should do in Vrindavan. Just go flaneur.
flaneur. It's one of Kishore's favorite words.
That's a good word.
That's a great word. Okay, so we've been um, we've been prepping ourselves to read the Gita for a number of weeks. As I was thinking of today, because we're starting to read the Gita today, I was like, well, maybe we should like do a little like warm up and an intro. And I'm like, well, we've been doing that the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and so I think we're just
Like
gonna start.
more intro.
Chita's like, we are introed.
We're
Um,
introed out.
we're introed out. We've outroed, introed, outroed.
That's also a thing. Yeah.
It's also a thing. All right. Okay. So we're starting Bhagavad Gita, verse one, chapter one, verse one. Anything you want to say before we start reading?
No, we should just do it. Do it. Do it. Do it.
Do it. Okay, we're doing it. Here we go. All right, let's get going. We're gonna do it. Ready to dive right in. First verse. Here we go. Let's do. Oh my goodness, I should not be hosting this anymore. Verse one, text one. Dhritarashtra said. Dhritarashtra um, is the king at the time, and he's asking his minister to narrate what's going on in the battlefield from afar. So Dhritarashtra said,
It's
"Oh,
actually his charioteer. It's not even his minister.
it's not his
Like
minister,
one
it's
would
his
think.
charioteer,
Yeah. I mean, he was with him a lot, and he got like this divine vision. But really, he was kind of just.
just a dude.
He was the dude.
He was the dude. O Sanjaya, who was the dude of the king, after my sons and the sons of Pandu, his brother, assembled in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what did they do? I'll read it again. Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjaya, after my sons and the sons of my brother Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what did they do? Um, Go ahead.
I always find it kind of interesting when we ask questions that we already know the answer to. And I feel like this is a case of that, as is evidenced by they assembled on a battlefield desiring to fight.
Mm,
So then what happened?
yeah,
Well,
yeah. Um, I think it's also, I mean, I love the idea of asking questions that I already have the answer to. And I've been reading through and kind of journaling and writing about this first chapter myself, and The first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is one that often generally is not known or considered to be a chapter with like the main lessons of the Gita and so much philosophy in there. It's like you're just kind of setting the scene, you're introducing the characters, you're
Hmm.
kind of transitioning from the grand story of the Mahabharata into the actual substance of the Gita, and then like a lot of the lessons really pick up in chapter two and from there. Not that there are lessons in chapter one, and I'm not saying that that's true. I'm just saying that's generally like even when you share the Gita with people, it's like, oh, you can just kind of skip over the first chapter if you want, just get into chapter two. And there's a lot of these
Really?
verses. What's that?
That's, I mean, I've never said that to anybody ever.
You've never said that to anybody ever?
Not ever. Ever, ever. Actually, I really like the first chapter.
I think like especially in the upcoming verses, you're going to get sort of just like a list of names and a list of just kind of like the battle that's taking place there, etc.
I
And
think it's
so
also
when you get into like the spiritual ABCs of like the nature of the soul and the nature of the attachment, the nature of the mind, like the things that you normally would think about in the Gita, you would think it comes later. I'm not saying that it is, but I'm saying I've heard that. And I've sometimes, um, it seems like there isn't as much to talk about in the first chapter. But I think that
hmm.
um, I think particular to this first verse, looking at the context and looking at the language that's used, um, is very, very significant. I find it especially when you look at some of the Sanskrit. Um, I find it very interesting, the word that's used, which is dharma. And so the first word of the Gita. So Dhrtarastra Uvacha is the first Sanskrit words, which is Dhrtarashtra said, he's speaking. And the first word spoken is dharma, dharma kshetra kurukshetra, in the place of dharma. And dharma, this place of dharma is also kurukshetra, which is a place of battle. It's a place where this war is going to take place. And so there's this place of, of, and then this question is asked, what did they do? And so much of the Gita itself is answering this question of dharma. Dharma means can on an existential level has various definitions. One being like what is the nature of something, like what is the inherent constitutional identity of something that you cannot take away from it. Like if you take that quality away, it no longer is the thing itself. But there are a lot of things you can take away from something, but it still remains essentially the thing, just in a varied way. Examples often given are ice and the quality of cold, are fire, the quality of heat and light. Like you can't take those things away without it altering the thing itself. And so this nature of dharma, like who are we? Like what am I? And so much of this question of what did they do, it's an interesting question because Arjuna asked this question as we come later on, like, what should I do? But so much of that question is based off of the idea of who am I? And so the Dharma question, because Dharma also means like the identity of a thing, and then it also refers to like sometimes it's referred to duty or action. Like, what is my Dharma in this situation? Like, what role do I play, or what should I do here? And so the first word of the Gita is the word dharma. Um, and it's compared to dharma being on a battlefield. The place of dharma is also a place of battle, and that we have to sometimes, it's not always clear. We sometimes have to fight for it. And so much of the Gita is going to be this kind of, um, before understanding what we should be doing in the world, we have to come to this clarity of like who we are and our role within it, um, in order to understand how to move forward. And so I just find the language very interesting and the use of the word dharma as well as the question of what did they do. It's almost like preceding. It's ignoring the fact that you just spoke about dharma, and now you're just kind of rushing into like what should we do without first answering that question.
Hmm. Um, while you were speaking, I was kind of thinking, and I was just reflecting on everything that you were saying, and I read about. It's going to be a little bit of a roundabout story, but I read about yesterday they are taking a really, really like classic, famous Bollywood movie and adapting it to a Broadway musical. And it's this story between, there's a girl from India, and originally it was supposed to be an American boy. But what they did was they in the original movie, they turned him into like a non-resident Indian kid. So raised in America and then comes back over to India. And what they've done on the Broadway adaptation is they've kind of changed the guy's name, and now he's straight an American guy that kind of looks just like you, Doyle. But he's just like an American dude. And they changed his name from Raj, like king, to Roger, and it's like Raj, short for Roger. And I kind of saw it, and at first I was like, why are we doing this? Was number one. Then the second thing, I wound up reading an interview, and he was saying up until like a month before he had workshopped for the role, he had no idea that the movie even existed.
Mm.
And so he's like, it's the kind of the first time I'm hearing about it, but I'm really, really excited to be a part of this project. And and there are loads of Indian people who've grown up with this movie, because it came out like in the 90s. They have grown up with this movie and they are outraged, completely outraged. It's like when you take things that are canon to comic book characters and you change them.
Mm.
So it's like if somebody were to be in the musical adaptation of Harry Potter, and until they had workshop for the role of Harry Potter, they knew nothing about it.
Mm.
And first of all, you kind of start thinking like, well, have you been under a rock? Like, what is happening? Like, where have you been? And two, like, how could this have happened? Like they're like, at least get somebody who understands the weight and the gravity of this entire uh universe that is Harry Potter, or that is this
Mm.
this entire musical adaptation. And so that's what I was kind of thinking about when I was looking at this first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. It's like you got to list the names, you got a whole bunch of things, you got a whole like, it's like walking in and going, I had no idea about any of this before I walked into this thing. But this here is kind of good. This, like, I guess, like whatever. Let's get to the like philosophical reasonings. And
Mm.
meanwhile, Dhritarashtra is actually asking this question because he's scared.
Mm.
He knows everything. But the problem is, he's like, there's a huge issue. We've been fighting for a really long time. We've gotten to this stalemate over this issue, and now not only did they assemble at a place of pilgrimage, it's a battlefield, and it's been a battlefield for millennia.
Mm.
It's got like these five ponds where Parshuram has like washed his hands of blood from killing 21 generations of Kshatriyas just like me. Not only did they assemble at a place of pilgrimage where Parshuram previously was, on a battlefield, desiring to fight, but it's a Kadashi. He's scared out of his mind. He's like, okay, now, okay, wait. Not only what did they do, but what is going to be the outcome? He's been trying to hold on to his tenuous grip of control on this kingdom for his entire life. And now it's kind of all coming down to this quintessential moment. And he's trying to figure out, but are they actually going to fight? Because we've been going back and forth for a really long time. There's been decades of them going back and forth of, are they going to fight? Are they not going to fight? Are they going to fight? Are they not going to fight? Okay, we're going to fight, but now we're going to send a peace envoy. We're going to send an ambassador. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Krishna comes. There's a whole like, there's a lot that has happened to bring us to this pivotal moment where all of these people are gathered on this battlefield. However, now he's afraid that the religious effects of being in a place of pilgrimage on the day of Akadashi are going to affect this decision. What's going to be the outcome? So now he's turning to his friend, Charioteer, support human, because he's also blind. And he's turning to his person and saying, okay, wait, are all of these positive factors going to affect what's going to happen with my sons? Because he knows he's on the wrong side. So there's so much in there that he knows that it's encapsulated in this first verse. There's this fear, there's this uncertainty, there's this, I'm taking into account the alignment of the stars and the planets and where they are right now, and everybody's in this place of dharma. Is that going to negatively impact my own outcomes? He has such a personal stake in this. And so
Mm,
when we see there's like a list of names and there's all these people, he's trying to take stock of, okay, what do I have on my side? What do they have on their side? And how is this going to work out for me?
mm. I I want to have a serious reply to what you just said, but as you were talking about casting and roles, etc., I just saw this recently, this big promotion for a movie. It was this big picture of Ryan Gosling in a white tuxedo, and it says Ryan Gosling is Barack Obama.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
but anyways, no, I love the question you asked. I really love how you're talking about asking a question because he's scared and almost asking questions that you know the answer to. And so much of the subsequent verses that will take place when Dhritarashtra's son Duryodhan starts speaking about his own position in the battle. Because again, if you're tuning in for the first time, we're talking about the Bhagavad Gita. It's the onset of this civil war, and Dhritarashtra, the father of one whole side of the army, who in so many ways is destined to lose. You know, the odds are not in his favor. Things are stacked against him. The omens are there. The signs are there. There's so many things pointing toward his imminent defeat. Um, and it also is this symbolism of like righteousness and evil and like light over darkness and all of these things. Um, and he knows there's something in him that knows this isn't going to work out for me. And I think that so much of when you contrast that with the consciousness of Arjuna later on in the Gita, and we read these verses, there's this sort of like giving up the false idea that things are going to work out in the material world.
Mm.
And there's this like, what keeps us going is this sort of, there's this inability to recognize what's not working. And Dhritarashtra symbolizes, he embodies material consciousness that refuses to give up when something's not working. I mean, we even have you read the Srimad Bhagavatam later on, past the Bhagavad Gita, after the war, Battle of Kurukshetra, and then he's still living in the home of like the people that he was trying to defeat, and they're just like accepting him because he's like their uncle, and they're like, we're compassionate, like we never wanted to fight you in the first place, like you instigated this war, but we're happy to just kind of like have you around and take care of you anyways. And he's just
I
like,
mean, we're not happy, but we are gonna have you around.
we're gonna have you around. We're not gonna say we like it. Um, and so this kind of like refusal to, and it's not until his brother Vidura comes to him, he's like, what are you holding on to? Like, what is it that you're holding on to? That's like, will you finally wake up? Martha said, we keep on fighting until we finally surrender. And I think that's very much the case. This idea of like holding on to our idea of how our life is supposed to be. And like Dhritarashtra had this idea of like, I'm meant to be the king. Yeah, but you're born blind. You know what I mean? My sons are meant to be the king. Yeah, but he's
He's
like,
actually younger than the other one. Like,
he's younger than the other ones, and like he's really lacking in some serious moral failings. You know,
like
he's
quintessential ones, not like, oh, you can raise him to be better. Like the kid was born, and the omens from this guy said, kill it immediately.
Hare Krishna. Not that we condone that in any way, shape, or form. Um, but
But
that
apparently the Vedas did. Like, how interesting is that? Like, nothing is unheard of to spiritual literature. But yeah, they kill it immediately, and he's like, I don't think so. I don't think I can let go.
um, and so yeah, I think Dhritarashtra is this space of not wanting to let go when something's not working in the material world, and Arjuna is going to represent this consciousness of looking up towards other ways of doing things.
Yeah, Srila Prabhupada often makes the point that Dhritarashtra was materially and spiritually blind. So not just materially, physically blind, but spiritually, his mind was just blinded and clouded. Contrasted, of course, by Arjuna, who represents such clarity of consciousness and the ability to surrender quickly, at least on the surface. What's amazing is when you get after the Bhagavad Gita, anybody go and like read the war after. It's like we get Bhagavad Gita and it's kind of like, it gets to be its own section, and then we don't take a second to go find out what happened after that. Spoiler alert, Arjuna's going to hear this entire Bhagavad Gita and say he's convinced, and then he's going to continue to act in ways that look like he's not convinced.
Mm.
And in fact, Krishna gets angry with him several times. He's like, bro, what are you doing? We had this conversation. We went through the whole thing. You gave me promises. I gave you promises. We exchanged. It's fine. You said you were going to fight with everything you've gotten. Now you keep holding back. What's the deal? And there are several times Krishna actually gets off of the chariot, throws down all the things that he's using, the tools with the horses. He's like, I'm going to do it myself. I'm just going to go and annihilate everything myself. And I find that that's incredibly encouraging, because we can think, oh, I heard Bhagavad Gita once. Why am I not getting it?
Mm.
Why am I not surrendering already?
Yeah.
It's a
Uh,
real thing.
yeah. Um, I wanted to just before we end today, I wanted to read some of the upcoming verses, just because Dhritarashtra asks this question, and then it goes into Dhritarashtra's son, sort of speaking to this idea of like trying to pump himself up and trying to pump up the people around him, even though they kind of know they're fighting a losing game. So Teksu says, Sanjaya said, O king, after looking over the army arranged in military formation by the sons of Pandu, King Duryodhan went to his teacher and spoke the following words. So Duryodhan is the son of Dhritarashtra.
He's also a
Oh
jerk.
my, he's also a jerk. Oh my teacher, who apparently the Vedas wanted to kill as a baby, but we're not going to kill. Hare Krishna. Oh my goodness. O my teacher, behold the great army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupad. Here in this army are many heroic bowmen equal in fighting to Bhima and Arjuna, great fighters like Yuyudhan, Virat, and Drupad. There are also great heroic, powerful fighters like Drishtaketu, Chekitana, Kashiraj, Purujit, Kuntiboj, and Shaibya. There are the mighty Yudhamanyu, the very powerful Uttamauja, the son of Subhadra and the sons of Draupadi. All these warriors are great chariot fighters. But for your information, O best of the Brahmins, let me tell you about the captains who are especially qualified to lead my military force. Their
Now that,
personality.
like, that's such a jerky thing to say. Like, think about it. Like, you've gone up to your teacher and you're like, you see that over there? You see the enemy army? Yeah, you did that. Congratulations. Look what you just raised. But for your information, FYI, look what's on my team. And we just happen to be a little bit better. Like, how do you go up to your preceptor, who you are supposed to revere with all respect, and tell them it's kind of like when I get emails and direct messages and they're like, ma'am, with all due respect, let me correct you on everything that you've just did wrong. And I'm like, what? You didn't even look it up yet. Like, what? And then they're like, well, I corrected you in a nice way. And I'm like, actually, you certainly did not. It was kind of rude. Like, he's being super rude and sarcastic. Like, you see all that over there? Congratulations to you. That was all done because of you. Because of you. But now look at what I've done.
Mm. Well, we're referring, is this mentioned in this third verse? It says, "O my teacher, behold the great sons of Pandu, which is the other army, so expertly arranged by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupad." So Dronacharya, who was the guru, it's mentioned that this idea that like nobody has a monopoly on knowledge, especially spiritual information. And so if somebody came to learn from the teacher, there was no discriminating against that in terms of one person being qualified, another person not. And so when uh, the son, it says the son of Drupad, was approaching Dronacharya to learn, he knew that the information I'm going to give him is ultimately going to be to my detriment. He chose to still offer and to teach. And then his student then went on to take all that information and contribute to the army that was eventually going to be opposing him. And so
He said,
Duryodhan just like,
what's
you weren't
crazy,
thinking this through.
like that's the thing, like what's crazy is he's like, by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupad. The son of Drupad, when he was born to kill Dronacharya. That was his only purpose in life. His father did a sacrifice for vengeance and said, I need a son to kill Dronacharya. And so Duryodhan's walking over and he's like, look what your intelligent disciple did. Aren't you so glad that you taught the person who was prophesized to kill you as soon as they were born? And in fact, he does. He takes all of the information. He goes and he asks him to teach him, and he does, knowing that this specific child, not even just in a war, this specific kid has been born just to kill him. And he does. Spoiler alert again. Sorry. He kills him. But it's Duryodhan is kind of rightfully, like, you can see it both ways. I can see why he's so sarcastic about it, but also it's kind of a jerk move to be so sarcastic about
I know why you did that, but it was still jerky.
it. Yeah, and
Um,
both can coexist.
we're gonna have to pick this up tomorrow because we're out of time for today. Want to hear from Kimberly what some of our takeaways are, and then we'll get our own takeaways and we'll take them with us.
Thank you. So today we're taking away to take the time to understand who we are and our role before moving forward, and to also let go of the idea of how we think our lives are supposed to look or be like.
Mm, beautiful. Thank you, Kimberly. What do you got, Chuta?
I am thinking about walking into situations that are in the middle of a karmic conversation.
Mm,
I want to be able to start understanding that every situation I walk into is the middle of a karmic conversation. And so I can't always make a snap judgment on what's happening because I am looking at just one segment of a whole karmic conversation.
there's more going on than what's happening right here. There's like this has been going on since before I got here, and will continue after I leave. Yeah.
Transformers, more than meets the eye.
Mm, more than meets the eye. I love that. I think that's I'm gonna take that one in terms of judgment, in terms of how much we I think so much of the beginning of the Gita is this idea of thinking things are supposed to be a certain way. And through my limited viewpoint of what I'm able to see, it might seem that way. But there's so much more going on that I'm aware of that might um, cause me to think differently about how things are supposed to be if I were to pan out a little bit. Sydney loves the Transformers. It fits. Everyone says thank you in the chat. We love you guys so, so much. Please, please be well. Continue to be well. Be in touch. Tell someone you love them. We love you guys. Be well, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye bye.